The goal was, how do we solve for problems in the business with the technology instead of just selling routers and antivirus and sending goofy reports on what was cleaned and what's infected? Customers don't care about that stuff.
Right.
You know, they want things that are going to create more revenue for the business.
This is Start, Grow, Manage, where we help managed service providers achieve the impact, freedom, and wealth you imagined back when you started your company. At Start, Grow, Manage, our tools, practices, and processes help you engage, energize, and execute on building a business that empowers an extraordinary life. Learn more about our programs and how they can fuel your fire at startgrowmanage.com/learn more. Let's go.
Welcome to the Start, Grow, Manage podcast. I am your host, Jeff Loehr, and in this new season of Start, Grow, Manage, we are going to talk to MSPs about what makes them successful, what has made them successful, what they are doing that's new and different, or maybe not different at all. In this first episode in this new series, I had a conversation with Sean Lentner from Lentner Technology, and he has been in the tech space for, well, I'm just going to say a few years, okay? He's been in the tech space for a few years and has some fascinating stories about how he has moved from business solution to business solution throughout his career. He's touched on solutions for financial industry, solutions for cable providers. He's done some work for the Vatican. Everything in his career has been about figuring out what the business or the organization needs and how technology can help them achieve those needs. And solving those needs has taken him around the world, from Wall Street to the Vatican. And it's been the backbone for his MSP story and MSP development. Now, when we recorded, we did have some technical issues. So parts of the conversation did get cut off, most notably part of the beginning, the part where we said hello. So we're just going to go straight into it. And the conversation started with me asking Sean, what was key for his MSP's success and his success in the tech market? And then the conversation went on from there. So Sean, what was crucial to your success?
Yeah. I always look at technology as, how do I solve a problem? It's always around a business problem. It's not around something that's nice to have or some new feature. I get it. Customers want that type of response from whoever the IT vendor is. I go to university, junior year, I drive down to Westport. I figured, hey, Westport's very wealthy. There's probably a great job here for me. I was actually right. I picked up the phone book when there's still phone books and pay phones. The first phone number I called, the guy was like literally right behind a CVS. He's like, just come upstairs. It was very informal. I explained to him my background, what I've done, how long I've been using computers and educating people on how to use it, stuff like that. You got to go down to Stanford. I'm going to get you a meeting tomorrow. It's a startup, and they make trading software and trading hardware for various exchanges, and then buy side, sell side, which would be in a bank, like a UBS, RBS, etc.
Yeah.
So I went down there. It was a grueling entire day interview process. And this will all come together here in a second.
Yeah.
It turned out this company, because it was a startup, there was a lot of opportunity for me to help bring new parts or new products to the market. One of the first things that I worked on was, before what's now known as dark pools, where you can anonymously trade. We created the first anonymous trading platform, and I was part of that team that got to really get my hands dirty with the technology. Then right before 9/11, I started about a year earlier, and I said, why don't we just take all of this technology and put it into a terminal server? So this way, if there's a disaster recovery need, we now have a solution. More importantly, is we can offer this to off exchange traders. So almost before E-Trade was even a thing. With that said, I was there for about 8 years. I had a great run, got about 30,000 shares of stock pre-IPO. The stock went through the roof. It split a whole bunch of times. And I said, all right, now it's time. Just like you were saying earlier, if somebody gave me $2 million, I put it in the bank. I put that money in the bank.
Fun.
I got married. I bought a house. I had a dog, and I had no clue what I was going to do next. But I literally was in a meeting with my boss, and he was giving me a raise, and he wanted to put me onto another team that I wasn't totally excited to be on. And I literally just said, I appreciate the offer, but I quit. So I gave him my 2 weeks. And the most amazing thing was not having a really good idea of what I wanted to do and having now all of this debt. It created a lot of back pressure. So in 2003, I went on my own. Officially, January of 2004, I was conducting business. The first thing I did was I reached out to the tri-state area's really only cable modem for business ISP. At the time, it was called Cablevision. And I asked for the best salesperson in Fairfield County. And this woman reaches out to me. We start talking. I explained to her, I was like, I can greatly enhance your sales by removing all the roadblocks that the customer is going to have, trying to transition from DSL, fiber, whatever it is, to your cable internet service. And I'll do that for free. You just call me. And if need be, I can even come in and meet with you and the customer. For the next 7 years, the business goes from $0 in annual revenue to 7 figures. I was working out of my garage. We had about 8 staff in the garage. One of my clients was actually my septic guy, and he came over one day and he said, I got to be frank with you. Like, you can't have all these people here using your facilities because it's going to break your septic, and then you got a $30,000 bill. So it's like, all right.
Now, the septic tank is a real pain in the ass, let me tell you.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, for sure. You fast forward, I bought a building in the center of town. We brought in fiber. We built a data center. I took a lot of my experience from the enterprise, right, from this other business, and I started to provide that to SMB mid-market. Became very successful because there weren't a lot of small businesses that could afford a terminal server. There were a lot of MSPs at the time in general, and the ones that existed didn't have a data center. They certainly didn't have fiber. We brought fiber literally into the town that I lived in, created a fiber ring, so you now have connectivity from both ends of the road, both poles, data center, generator, all that stuff. That was the next successful thing after the cable internet service, where I was helping that salesperson. And so that brought on a different type of customer. We started working with a lot of customers that had 30, 40 locations. Maybe it was a lumber yard. They wanted to interconnect everything. So we're starting to apply that type of technology across the board. Again, the goal was, how do we solve for problems in the business with the technology instead of just selling routers and antivirus and sending goofy reports on what was cleaned and what's infected? Customers don't care about that stuff.
Right.
They want things that are going to create more revenue for the business.
Yeah.
So interesting. If you fast forward to 2010, and again, you'll start to better understand the flavor here in the context. One of my customers operated in 23 countries. It was a digital storytelling and technology company. So we were servicing all of their technology. We serviced all 23 countries and the different offices that they had there. And some of them were actually inside of museums. Then the next challenge is it's a PE-owned firm. So they parachuted me into Bangkok, Thailand to close up an engineering arm of the business where they engineered all of the technology that they sold.
Yeah.
So I went in there, I did a forensic swab of all the systems. I brought them back to my data center, virtualized all of it. They loved that so much. They sent me to the Vatican. They had a $500,000 inventory system that the Vatican needed because they wanted to track every asset that's been given to a visitor, because they're doing a ticket share. So you have 30,000 people that come a day. We probably had in service about 45 to 50,000 devices with 80 staff members on the ground. The product didn't work. It didn't work offline. The internet was poor. And all of this operation was done outside of the main entrance for the Vatican. As you can imagine, we're not getting paid by the Vatican because the software that's supposed to report the usage doesn't work. So my second job was to bring in the company that built the software from the Midlands in England down to London. We had an office in Shoreditch, and I was essentially acting as a full-time CTO at this point. So I rectified that problem. Then the next thing is they asked me to actually come work there full-time. Fast forward 2014, I'm now running my MSP. It's a fairly standard practice. It's flatlined at this point. It's not growing. It's not it's not, there's no attrition, but it's very even. We probably have about 24 people in the business. In the building that I bought, we had a big trading desk so that everybody could see each other, they could hear each other, which was a vital component to success.
Yeah.
Because the way I taught my technicians are, if you've worked somebody and you hear Johnny over here talking to the same customer about the same problem, ask or pause whatever you're doing and provide the insight so the customer isn't repeating themselves over and over again. So that was a very successful model. In 2014, when I started full time with this technology and storytelling company, the next challenge is the PE firm wants to get away from hardware. So I created 8 patents. Those 8 patents exist in the EU. Some of them are hardware patents, software patents, and design patents. Specifically, the one that's of great interest, the PE firm, was I created a method to get content onto a mobile device that the consumer would bring to a historic site or a museum, and that data would get pushed down only in their language. It was probably less than a megabyte, and it didn't require you to actually connect to the internet. So if you've ever gone to a hotel and you get a walled garden where there is Wi-Fi, but then a web page pops up and you have to consent and put in some information. I created the same experience, but when you consented, you were getting local data pushed down to your device and it bypassed the Play Store. Why that becomes important is I directly went to the Vatican. I met with the CFO and I said, look, I know that you don't want a mobile device app because you don't want to pay the 30% margin to Apple and Google. I said, I want to show you a demo of a concept. It was a grand success. The entire vertical changed. All of our competitors all pivoted to the same business model because it's easy, doesn't require human capital. We're solving for a lot of stuff. There's no hardware, there's no charging, there's no repairs, etc.
Yeah.
So that was a fascinating job. I stayed there until about 2017, and then I came back to the business. When I came back to the business, the marketplace had definitely changed, right? We were lacking some technologies where we should have been a little bit more efficient. And I really wanted to get out of truck rolls. I wanted to make sure that everything was in the cloud. I wanted my customers to adopt Office 365 cloud storage. Essentially, I just wanted them to have a laptop with no other peripheral equipment in the office other than maybe a router or internet service.
Yeah.
And we were very successful going into 2018, doing 2 things. One, upgrading from Windows 7 to Windows 10. And then secondly, moving all of our customers into the cloud. That reduced our call volume by 80%. So again, solving for issues. But interestingly enough, as we start to transition in 2017 to all cloud 2018, we're now also working very closely with Dropbox. Never sold Dropbox really before. Their channel program was only really implemented in 2016, so we were new to the scene. And as we're moving all of our customers up, I did get burnt one time at that international company where we deployed OneDrive, and it really was not fit for use at the time. And Dropbox did a phenomenal job with file sync share. We quickly started to become a shining star at Dropbox because we're providing all the professional services that Dropbox doesn't provide. So now we're working with Dropbox on things that are unrelated to being a CSP. So we went from a managed service provider to a cloud service provider. Now we're getting brought in to move like 300 terabytes of data from very large publicly traded companies in New York City. There's actually other MSPs that are the incumbent in these businesses that we're working with, them knowing damn well that we're also a competitor, but they don't have the knowledge to do these things. So we became so successful that Dropbox we became the de facto partner for all of that work. And then we became even more sophisticated. We started building out workflows. So Dropbox would have a customer come, and some of these were very large companies, where they wanted a replacement workflow for DocuSign. So that requires in Salesforce, you have to have a Salesforce developer. You have to understand APIs. In other cases, there wasn't an open API, so we had to create middleware. In some certain instances, that was for like an HRIS system. So you fast forward to today, we've got not only a ton of case studies that we can provide to a customer, but we are now educating our customer base on using workflows to better improve ROI and do essentially the same thing we did at the Lentner business, which is draw down the human capital cost, the human errors when you don't have a process-driven solution. And that's now become wildly successful because these are the same customers that have been with me for 20 plus years. They didn't know what the internet was. Now, obviously, they can't live without it. But the buyers become a lot sharper. They understand the benefits of technology. And when you start to talk about workflows and how do I give you back 15 hours out of a work week to go do something that's billable and profitable versus uploading a document here, getting it signed on e-signature, downloading it, putting it back up into some other CRM. Those are all human repeatable tasks that can be removed. And that resonates. And that's because I'm talking to somebody with a business owner's lens.
Absolutely. Are you providing automated workflows or just workflows that are partly automated and partly just defined? So this is how you work to make your work more efficient.
All of the above.
Yeah.
In some cases, you can't tie it all together because there's either restrictions or budgetary concerns. But ideally, as we're creating a full end-to-end solution, and it does two things, to be honest with you, Jeff. One, it creates a really sticky customer.
Absolutely.
Because you're doing something that their last IT vendor would glaze over, wouldn't even understand what an API is. So fast forward even further, we work with one of the largest cybersecurity software manufacturers. They're really not well known in the US. They're based out of Canada. It's called OpenText. So we work very closely with them to educate their MSPs and CSPs onto how to better utilize conversations with customers. So when we go in and we do a quarterly business review, it's how do we do those automated workflows? Maybe we can define ways of using AI. And I'll give you an example. We went to one of my very long-time customers. It's a family law firm based out of Westport, Connecticut. And I said, look, I'm sure you've heard of AI and it's a great buzzword and nobody's really seemed to have come up with a way to capture revenue and use it in a manner that's actually going to be useful.
Yeah.
But why don't you, as a legal team, tell me what's a real time drain and error prone? And the founding partner immediately said prenups. I said, all right, here's what we're going to do. I'm going to build you a proof of concept. We're going to use Microsoft Teams because that's an interface you already use today. We're going to create a channel that's literally called prenups. We're going to feed 15 years worth of completed prenups into Microsoft Copilot. So we've got the AI all plumbed into Microsoft Teams. Let's start asking questions and see if this really is a benefit to you. And sure enough, he said, tell the template that it has to be a 5-5-2 parenting plan. Tell the template to divide up XYZ assets. But sure enough, we asked a lot more than those questions. And the template is obviously multiple pages, but we hit enter on that Microsoft Teams and it was like a caveman saw fire for the first time. Here's something would take many hours and we have multiple partners. They all do it differently. It's not the same. And here, not only has it completed it in less than, I think, probably a minute, but it cited every reference to every partner's document that was used as part of the entering the data into the template. So we're now devising the next go-to-market, which is there's no value in selling Copilot. There's no margin, but Microsoft wants you to push it. However, we now bundle Copilot into a solution, and this is one of those solutions. And we charge $100 a month per partner to use that solution. It happens to have the $30 Copilot license in there, but the rest of it is to manage and provide support to attorneys that need to either add more documents or something is happening, like a hallucination, etc.
You could probably charge more than $100 because the time that they're saving is huge.
Yeah, absolutely.
My dad, he was a lawyer, and this was back, I want to say it must have been the late 80s, right? And they were creating these briefs. And what he did at the time was set up a Microsoft Word template where you would open the template and it would ask you certain things like the name and the case number and a paragraph of what's going on. And then it would put it all into one document. And people were blown away. It was the same experience that you're talking about now, that, the caveman seeing fire.
And it's interesting when you talk, you're just taking that to another level. So now it's okay, word templates, yeah, we've all seen that before, but now it's actually going to write the whole document for you and streamline it. So the template thing that was there before is now evolved, and we're using AI to take that to a completely new level, which is really cool.
So that's, in a nutshell, that's where we were when we started to realize that we struck gold.
Yeah.
And now for OpenText, for instance, they're having me down to Microsoft's DC office tomorrow, and I'll be speaking in front of probably about 30 MSPs about things that you should be doing in your QBR with your customer. Like, for instance, one that's very important is cybersecurity insurance.
Yeah.
A lot of these MSPs, they don't get involved enough to understand that if the customer misrepresents their questionnaire, their cybersecurity questionnaire, they're going to have their claim denied. And in 2022, for a matter of fact, travelers went in front of a federal judge and said, hey, my customer IMC misrepresented their questionnaire. They said they had MFA on all their servers. They didn't. They had a breach. We had a specialist come in and identify the server that lacked the MFA, and the judge agreed, denied the claim, and rescinded the entire policy. Now, that happened again between an actual customer and an MSP, where the customer had requested that all of their technology be locked down, and the MSP didn't do the work correctly. There was a breach, and then there was a $1.8 million lawsuit. So that's where you kiss your business goodbye, and your reputation is trashed. I'll be going down and explaining that, but then also explaining the value of rolling out APIs and professional workflows for customers. And oddly enough, Jeff, this is where it gets quite interesting. We got so successful doing this stuff for other MSPs that I ended up starting another business called BitTaxi that does software distribution. So we're now in the same realm as Ingram Micro, TD SYNNEX. The difference is those companies don't provide those types of services. So now we have partners coming to us with problems they can't solve for. We run all their licensing through our distribution platform, and then we provide all of the professional services. So it's a win-win. So it's a whole nother recreation of an environment that was lacking the right type of business model.
Is it fair to say then that your success in the MSP space has been about identifying and solving customer problems, finding those problems and just coming up with a solution to make their life easier?
Yes. And at the same time, continuing to refine the business model so that it adapts to the current need, not only for the customer, but for the business. And I think there's a lot of MSPs out there, Jeff, that they hesitate to make changes, or they hesitate to look at competitive products. They're ConnectWise fanboys, or they're a Datto fanboy, and they will never look at another product. I don't agree with that model. I don't know that Datto that started 15 years ago is the same company today through all the mergers and acquisitions. So for me, it's very important. I like to stay agnostic of a walled garden approach. I want my customer to have the best experience with the best products in the market, not because there's a product offering that's all encompassing.
And it's interesting that you say that, because it's almost like there's a whole industry geared towards putting MSPs in a box, right? And the real opportunity for an MSP to differentiate, to develop that unique selling proposition, to stand out in the market, is to look at all of that differently, to bring in different products, to maybe even reject the Dattos or the standard offerings, because those are built for yesterday, which may or may not be solving today's problems.
That's correct. And it's the same thing with Microsoft. Yeah, they make some products that are quite amazing. Microsoft Exchange, their email system is by far the best in the industry. Do I think OneDrive is a great product? No. And I have firsthand from accounts that we've won where there was an incumbent MSP that just shoved OneDrive down their throat, is they wanted something better. They don't want conflicts. They don't want things that don't sync. They need to get a job done, not play technician with the MSP. So that's a big deal.
Yeah.
And then I think secondly is when you get yourself into this walled garden, you're essentially just becoming the same identity of every single other MSP. There's no USP at that point. There's no critical thinking at that point.
I like
and
that.
now you're
No
seeing
critical
it again, Jeff, in the marketplace with you have all this consolidation, all these PE firms are merging all of these IT vendors to get it together. And now we're becoming like the Renaissance man.
Yeah.
We're not an M&A. We're not an M&A. We're not part of a PE firm where it's pump and dump. We want our customer to have the best experience possible. And what I've realized is I'm better off raising my rates and keeping my existing customer, who's the best customer to begin with, because I can just upsell and cross-sell, and then be very selective on new customers that I bring into the portfolio.
Yeah. Love that thinking. It's like everybody wants to just go out and market and get thousands of people to pay attention. But really, if you focus on the customers you have, build that, raise the rates while you're adding value, right? Because they're happy to pay for additional value, and even reduce customers, like you mentioned a couple of times, and then be picky about who you add into your portfolio of customers so that it doesn't dilute your offering and allows you to reinforce your unique selling proposition.
Correct. And I think that the other challenge here is when it becomes an M&A, and I literally ran into this last week. I met with a prospective customer. They're growing rapidly. It's a startup. They've been around for 4 years. This is another PE thing, is they're buying up school housing and they're just rolling under one umbrella. So now all the school housing and all the student rent goes through this one company, and they're growing like crazy. So when they came to me, they said, look, we went with this vendor who had 8 locations. We didn't find out until after the fact that these are all new mergers and acquisitions, and all of the back-end systems aren't even plumbed in properly. You'd get somebody from one state, somebody else from another state. It was never cohesive. You never built a relationship with somebody. You didn't feel like you knew anybody. It's like you're just calling into the DMV. It's just like a nameless face. So I think customers, again, they're very savvy with technology now, and they're starting to realize that roll-up is occurring. And my gut feeling is you're going to see more and more of these customers have a really bad user experience and go look for a boutique shop that can do the same thing, but better. It might cost more, but at least they're always going to know I can reach out to Sean Lentner. I have Sean Lentner's cell phone. I can ask him to give me better ROI on the technology I have, etc.
So that's absolutely what we are seeing. So what we do is we try and teach MSPs how to have those business conversations and think in a business way. I guess one of the questions that I have for you is, how did you learn that, and how do you think MSPs can learn that? What's the best way to help MSPs understand this way of thinking?
Here's the big challenge is most MSPs are found by somebody who's a technologist. They love the technology. They don't understand business per se. They don't understand what a business owner wants from the technology.
It sounds like you started in business, so it was more natural to you?
Yeah, look, I've always been hustling since I was a kid. It's 1994. I just graduated from high school. And I said, Dad, how do I get a Amex credit card? And he goes, you're not going to get one anytime soon because you don't have any credit. So I didn't take his word for it. I called Amex myself. And I said, what are ways to get a credit card without credit? I said, well, if you had a business, the credit terms are much easier to get past. So I ripped down to town hall. I established a business. And then I have a card that says member since 1995. With that said, I realized that really I could do whatever I wanted, even if it wasn't possible by normal terms. So I started putting ads in papers and soliciting that I'd provide education on computers. The whole office suite looked perfect. And I was getting like $15 an hour. These people were actually coming over to my house. I could barely drive then. And I just always kept that in the back of my head. And then obviously when I went to this job right after university, I always reminded myself that, Sean, you don't want to be 50 years old and sitting in a cubicle. and you're one of 10,000 people. You're just a nameless person.
Yeah.
And I like technology, but I really like to solve for business problems.
But
Yes,
I think
that's
it's how do we instill? I think the problem is instilling that passion for solving for business problems, because that's where it is, right? That's where the opportunity is, in the solving for business problems. And what I see so often is that everybody gets stuck in that technology space, and just getting people to see things as business problems is a real challenge, and to understand that what they're selling is not technology, but rather solutions to business problems. And what we're trying to figure out is how to teach that to people.
We've got now quite a few MSPs through this software distribution company. And
Yeah.
what we tell them is, don't worry about learning how to sell the product. Just bring one of us on the call. We're part of your team. We'll close the deal for you. So
Yeah.
I'll give you another story. We've got a national MSP. They're heavy on sales. They got about 75 salespeople. None of them are technical, but they had a customer that came to them and said, look, we've got an HR system and we have our Salesforce system. And I gave you elements of this deal already. It's a $3 million deal over the course of 3 years. So it's a fairly large deal. I shit you not, Jeff. The sales guy from that MSP got on the first call, made an introduction for me, and then he never spoke again. 6 months later, the deal was closed. So I'm at the point now where, and thank God I've got the time to do it, but if the deals are big enough, we'll come in and we'll close the deal for the partner. And they don't even have to do the development work. They can paper everything. They can paper the development, professional services, et cetera, whatever it is that we're doing. And then just rinse and repeat. Go back into that same customer and find some other systems that need automation.
So what's the best way for MSPs to get started with that and to learn more about that service?
They can go to the website. They can see all the case studies that we've done for other partners. They can register. It's a fully automated process. They can literally register as a partner and book a meeting all at the same time. And then we'll get on for 30 minutes, explain what we do, ask them if they have any live opportunities or if they would like us to get on a call and listen to a customer's challenges, and then we'll identify the silver lining.
Yeah.
The MSP might not even know what the customer needs, but we'll ask the right questions to qualify it.
Look, that's brilliant, Sean. Thank you very much for taking the time to chat with me. I look forward to future conversations and hopefully having you join us in June. And this is great. Thank you very much.
You got it.
So I hope you enjoyed that conversation with Sean and found it as inspiring and interesting as I did. It is amazing how far you can go with business solutions. We start talking to so many MSPs who are stuck in the back office, who are stuck with the technology, who feel frustrated, who feel trapped. And we're trapped by the technology. But when you can create business solutions, it can take you in so many different directions. And it's clear that Sean's success has really been based on developing a unique value proposition that is not based on technology. The technology that he has in the back end doesn't matter. Like he says, he wants to swap that out and he wants to be agnostic. It's about the solution that he is providing in the business world. Now, the good news is that what we have learned is that when you have the technical expertise, you can learn the business side of things. That's actually easier than all of the technology. So there is a lot of opportunity to get support, maybe working with Sean. We have lots of tools and templates and workshops that you can attend in order to improve your business know-how. And if you are listening to this, in fact, before June 2025, we have our training day coming up, and hopefully Sean will be able to attend and talk a bit about how he's used AI to solve problems for his clients and how that works in the MSP space. So if you are listening before June 2025, go sign up. If not, well, then it has already happened, but we probably have some recordings, so go check that out. And on that, thank you very much for listening. Have an amazing time developing your unique selling proposition. Have some fun coming up with some business solutions for your clients. And I will talk to you next time right here at Start, Grow, Manage.
Thanks for joining us, and a special thanks to our subscribers. Consider becoming one right now and tap into our insights and instincts to help drive your business vision and success. Remember, you didn't start your business to feel frustration. You started it for freedom. We can help you discover the impact, freedom, and wealth you always imagined. Learn more at startgrowmanage.com/learn more.